بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. آداب البطن, stomach. وأما البطن فاحفظه من تناول الحرام والشبهة. He's saying, as for the stomach, protect it from eating the forbidden and the doubtful food. Food, of course, you only put food in the stomach. So protect from the eating, the forbidden and the doubtful. وَأَحْرِصْ عَلَى طَلَبِ الْحَلَالِ. And he's saying that also strive to seek lawful earnings. فَإِذَا وَجَدْتَهُ فَأَحْرِصْ عَلَى أَن تَقْتَصِرَ عَلَى مَا دُونَ الشِّبْعِ. He's saying that once you have obtained what is lawful, try not to eat so that you become full. And he wants, first thing first, that you should not eat any haram food and you should not eat any doubtful food. Both are extremely, extremely important. Haram and doubtful. Haram is clear, right? Alcohol, pork, etc. All of these are haram food. But even doubtful. Problem is that we do not take care of the doubtful food. It's very unfortunate because we eat whatever we feel like. We pass by a restaurant and we are hungry and we smell the food and we feel like, oh, it must be very tasty, and we go and we eat it without even asking what is that food. And the other day I was talking about the hadith, al-khamru jumma'ul ismi, that alcohol is the gatherer of all sins. And somebody asked me a question in the class that, what about this alcohol that is in the medicine, or what about the alcohol in the perfumes? And I asked them a question, a general question. I said, do you eat strepsils? If you have a sore throat or you have an itchy throat, do you eat strepsils? And majority of the class said, yes. I said, have you ever read what's in the ingredients of strepsils? No. And people don't even look into what are they eating. And do you eat strepsils? Huh? See, he's clever. Maybe. Have you ever read what's written in the ingredients? Dichlorobenzyl alcohol. Right? It says that in the ingredients is some sort of, there is a number written and it's a dichlorobenzyl alcohol. People don't even know what are they eating. Although, I told them that this is synthetic alcohol, this is not fermented alcohol that's created in the lab. This name alcohol is a formula, chemical formula, OH. If it comes with something that it is known as, like chemically, the chemist will call it alcohol, but it's not that alcohol, which is haram, shar'an, right? So it's okay to consume that. So good news for them. But the problem is that people don't look at what they eat. They don't even think about it. They never look at the ingredients. And especially the candies, for example, they come from the West. And people just eat it, feed it to their children, and there is gelatin in that. And majority of the gelatin that is used in the West is derived from, it can be derived from fats, animal fats, and it can also be derived from vegetables. But because it's cheaper, it's easily accessible, the animal fat, and amongst the animal fats, the cheapest for the people in the West is what? Pig, right? Pork. That's their fat. And you never know where is it all coming from. And you feed it to your children. Unfortunately, they're eating pork. And you are eating pork without even realizing that. You hate it, but you eat it. When I was in the US, I was a student, friends often used to joke amongst ourselves that, if you stay in the US for like two years, you will eat half a pig. Because everything is gelatin, everything is some sort of an ingredient that's coming out of a fat, and generally the fat that they use is, pork. And it's unfortunate. You have to be very careful as to what you're eating. So, You should know about what you eat. You should know about your eating habits. You should know about what you are eating exactly. That's your right. Because that's a big thing. Eating haram and even doubtful things. Right? He's saying, فَحْفَظُوا أَن تَنَاوُلُ الْحَرَامِ وَالشُّبْهَةِ. And even if you're eating halal food, there is no haram ingredient, but that can still make it haram. How? If your earnings are haram. If your earnings are haram, you cheated somebody and you earned. You had to go and sell a car, and you know that there is issue in the car. You sold it to this buyer without telling him that issue. The money that you got out of that becomes haram. At least that portion that you got. And then God gets mixed up with all of that. It all becomes fishy. Likewise, you are supposed to work, right? And everybody has different sorts of work. Some are worked, they are paid hourly, right? For example, you are a laborer, and you are supposed to get your compensation on per hour basis. You are supposed to work for that 1 hour. And you don't work, and you go and you gossip, you chat with your friends for that, and 1 hour, and after 1 hour, at the end of the day, you come to your the contractor and say, I work for 8 hours, so I ate into whatever number that you agreed with, and this is what I'm supposed to get today. And in that 8 hours, 2 hours or 5 hours, you only gossip with your friend, right? So that earning of that day becomes haram, or at least that much. Sometimes your job is project-based, right? That it is not per hour, but it's project-based. And the proof is that sometimes, people normally who work in corporate environments, they can't just say it's 5 o'clock, let me go back home, right? If you're supposed to finish your project, then you may have to sit until 6, until 8, until 10, you are attending meetings at night, right? That happens in corporate environments. So that's a proof that your job is project-based, it's not hourly-based. So in that case, even if you take like 5 minutes out to relax here and there, to check your email, and that's what the corporate environments also expect, right? But of course, that has to be within the limits, and you have to make sure that the project that you're doing is 100% right, the requirements are met, and you are also achieving that on time, right? Properly tested, honestly work done, everything. Then it becomes halal. Otherwise, that can also become haram. That if you're cheating in that as well. So we have to be very, very careful about as to how are we earning. And some people, they earn from haram sources. Like for example, they work in conventional banks, and they work in the projects that deal directly with interest. Either they are the ones writing the contracts, or signing the contracts, or proving the contracts, or they have the job of coming up with products that are interest-based products, for example, promotions for credit cards and stuff like that, right? So if you deal with interest, either you take it, you give it, or you become a mediator, right? All of that will make it haram, right? So that's why working in generally banking contracts in a conventional bank, that makes your earning haram, right? SubhanAllah, you work so much, and at the end of the day, you don't get anything out of that. Shar'an. All what you got was haram money, right? So now you're feeding yourself, your family, your children with haram money. And likewise, if people do businesses, right? Business, the contracts have to be done in proper Shari'i way, and that's why we have to learn fiqhul buyu. If you don't learn fiqhul buyu, the fiqh of the rulings of buying and selling, right? Shariat has very clearly and very extensively defined how to buy and sell. What should be the contract like? What is right? What's wrong? Very clearly and very extensively defined that. And many people, unfortunately, they buy and sell on terms and conditions which are not proper, not according to Shariat. That makes that of their contract, not necessarily all of them, that of their contract either fasid or batil, it depends. That can be mawquf, that can be haram until you fix that, those terms and conditions, etc. Right? So we have to learn all of that so that all of our earnings are halal and none is haram. And we are not cheating in our businesses as well. For example, subhanAllah, you go to fruit markets and right, they have packs and you will see that all the fruits are so good, right? And you open the pack, you bring it back home, and all of the lower layer is all rotten, right? It's deceiving people. You're showing something else and you're selling something else. Either you tell to display all of it, get a bigger box, and make one layer so that the buyer is seeing all of them, that this is what he's getting at the end of the day. One Prophet ﷺ was passing by a market, and there was somebody selling, I think, either wheat or rice or something, right? So he had a heap. So Prophet ﷺ, subhanAllah, he was doing tarbiyat of people. He actually inspected that. He put his hand inside. And what was inside was all wet. And the outside layer was dry, right? Might have rained, and it might have gotten wet. So it was all wet. Prophet said, what is this? He said, Ya Rasulullah, it rained. He said, did it rain inside? Did it rain inside? Yani he was correcting him. What are you doing? You're deceiving people. Man ghasha falaysa minna. He said, whoever deceives people is not from us. He's not from my ummah. He's not from my millat. So we have to be very careful, because all of that makes our earnings haram. SubhanAllah, we make so much effort. Itni mehnat karte hain. And then at the end of the day, we are earning haram. It will remove the barakat from that earning. So it will also make the food that we eat haram, because the earnings are haram. And the haram intake will only take out haram. Understand? Haram intake will take haram actions out. So if our children become rebellious, if our children are not on righteousness, right? One of the reasons amongst many is that they are eating haram. You are feeding them haram. Of course, haram in, haram out. Garbage in, garbage out. So please, we have to be careful about that. And then also the other things of, for example, somebody left a bag right at the back last night, and there was a chocolate box in there. Now, I don't know whose chocolate box is that. I know the intention of that person, that he must have brought it as a hadiyah, because this is how I felt like that. He wanted to do hiba, right? He wanted to do hadiyah. But how do I know? Right? If somebody leaves a bag at the back, Sharan, I will have to go and search for the owner. Maybe give an advertisement on the TV, right? Somebody left his chocolate box in 111 and husband. SubhanAllah. We don't know that, right? In order to give a gift, Sharan, you have to give it to that person, make him the malik of that. He takes control of that. That's where hiba becomes tam. And that's where this gift becomes his. Now he has the ownership. But there are many people do that. People bring gifts, they will put it on the side, and they're leaving. And I often tell them, my friend, you're leaving some of your things. And then, no, I brought it for you. I said, tell me that you brought it for me. And it's for you. I know they feel like embarrassed saying it. All of that is fine. But generally, Sharan, there are a few things that you should, or do an ishara. Right? Some sort of, you can't say it exactly, which I understand is a good thing. And you should not be showing favors, Badi mushkil se aapke liye laya hu, actually searched for it all over, was not finding it, especially after, after searching for 5 hours, I got this and I brought it to you. Honestly, you feel like, thank you very much, and I gift it back to you, it's yours. Allah aapko mubarak kare. There has to be humility in giving gifts, right? You have to lower yourself down, as if it's his ihsan on you that he is accepting your gift. This should be our attitude. But still, there has to be, have to keep up with the principle of Sharia as well, right? So, isharatan, please. This is how, once I gave a gift to one of my teachers, and I literally begged him, literally. And I'm just telling you as tarbiyat, and I had to offer them, I offered them some money as a gift, right? And I put it in an envelope, right? And put a note that please, accept it from me. And then I literally begged him, I know it is something that I'm not worthy of giving it to you, but I really request you, it will be your favor upon me that if you can please accept it from me. And so there should be adab. But still the rules have to be fulfilled, right? Understand that. That haram, we need to not only haram source, it can be haram way of, or non-shari way of transactions as well, that can also make it haram. But we have to know that. But haram source of income will make the food and the drink haram as well. And that is very dangerous. Because if you take in haram, then what will come out is also haram. Then don't blame anybody but your own self. And then the second thing, now you have haram food, halal food, halal earning. فَإِذَا وَجَدْتَهُ. Once you find it, then he said, فَحْرِصْ عَلَىٰ أَن تَقْتَصِرَ مِنْهُ عَلَى مَا دُونَ الشِّبْعِ. Now don't eat to the full. That's another problem. We're talking about the etiquettes of filling the stomach, right? Halal food, everything is halal, but then don't eat until, your throat, that you can't even breathe anymore. People do that. That's another issue. When people overeat. Honestly, let me look into people who are sitting here. In suluk, in tazkiyah, in ihsan, in this path of spirituality, Hazrat says, having a big stomach is haram. I've quoted it, I'm just passing it on, what I heard from, what I got from Hazrat, okay? So that people don't shoot me. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay? He says that in the path of spirituality, having a big stomach is haram. Except that you have a disease. That you have a disease. People do have diseases. Right? People get, for example, very high level of diabetes and the insulin and the medicines that they are taking, it actually swells their stomach. It does happen. Right? So don't, again, give people benefit of the doubt. Give people benefit of the doubt. Some people literally, they drink water and it will increase their fat. Water. Honestly. Right? Anything they take. So all our friends here who are, mashallah, healthy people, we give them benefit of the doubt. Right? This is how Allah Ta'ala created them. They don't eat, they hardly eat. We know that. Right? Inshallah. Chare. But it does happen as well. So exceptions on the side. Generally speaking, overeating is not allowed. Once Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was doing tawaf and he saw a man with his stomach sticking out. Right? Sayyidina Umar, as we all know of him, mashallah, he had a stick in his hand. He hit his stomach with the stick while doing tawaf. He said, it should have been better that this stomach was on somebody else. And you're a Muslim. How can you overeat? So he's saying that once you find halal food, then make sure that you don't fill it up. You don't fill it up. فَإِنَّ الشِّبْعَ يُقَسِّ الْقَلْبَ وَيُفْسِدُ الذِّهْنَ وَيُبْطِلُ الْحِفْظَ وَيُثَقِّلُ الْأَعْدَاءَ عَنِ الْعِبَادَةِ وَالْعِلْمِ وَيُقَوِّي الشَّهَوَاتِ وَيَنْصُرُ جُنُودَ الشَّيْطَانِ. He's saying this is what happens when people fill their stomach. That the filling up the stomach, it makes the heart hard. I've experienced that. Literally. When I was in Chicago, may Allah give Jazaak Khair to my wife, very caring. And one time when I'll go to work, she will give me a lunch pack. And sometimes she will also put the snacks in there. So once, chocolate and chips and all of that. And now you're working on a project and others, you open the chips bag and you're eating and all right. And that's what, you have things around you and you eat. And literally when I did that for like 2, 3, 4, 5 days, literally I felt as if my heart has become hard. I generally don't eat that much. My appetite is, it's not that I'm a very pious person. It's naturally, this is how I am since childhood. Right? It's not my kamal. Allah Ta'ala designed me like that. Initially people used to, criticize me for that. Now people, they envy me. Right? Oh, mashallah, what do you do? Do you do a lot of exercise? No. This is how Allah Ta'ala has designed me, right? So once you become old, then slimness becomes it's a quality. But when you are young, then everybody goes, you're so skinny. And subhanAllah, that's very amazing. Every time anybody will meet me, right, after like a month, 2 months, 3 months, oh, you've gotten weaker. And that happened for like years. And I always wonder, if this was to happen this is happening for the last 10 years, I would have disappeared by now. Right? 10 years, every month you're saying you've gone weaker, you've gone slimmer. How do I still exist? SubhanAllah, people just exaggerate everything. And now, people, they like it. MashaAllah, I want to become like you. How you're so slim. So anyway, what I'm saying is that if you eat a lot, I've experienced that, then it makes the heart hard. The kayfiyat are lifted. It makes the heart hard. So don't overeat. Don't get into the habit of eating junk food. And anyway, now at this age, I can tell you this as well. Eating junk food makes the heart hard, but at the very same time, it's very bad for your health. People who have the habit of eating junk, it's very bad for your health. After you cross 40, subhanAllah, I can tell you, all of these issues are going to come to you, and then you will be struggling. And majority of the diseases that we have in this day and age are because of overeating and eating junk. Blood pressures, heart diseases, right? Diabetes, cholesterol, etc. Majority of these diseases are because of eating too much or eating junk. And so that's on the side, but anyway, it makes the heart, spiritual heart, hard as well. Alright? And then it hardens the heart. And also what else does it do, overeating? وَيُفْسِدُ الذِّهْنِ. It ruins the intellect. Right? It ruins the intellect. Right? If you eat more, try eating more. At lunch. Don't do that. But what happens as a result? You feel sleepy, isn't it? Allahu Alam, what happens, and doctors will tell me, but what I've heard is that there's more blood flow towards the mind, the brain, right? And the other things that you want to do, you're not able to do so with your full strength. Right? You feel lazy, you want to sleep, you want to rest. Right? So overeating will also ruin your intellect. وَيُبْطِلُ الْحِفْظِ. And it also hinders people's ability to memorize. It also hinders people's ability to memorize. Their hafizah becomes weak. Their memory becomes weak. Overeating. And then he says, وَيُسَقِّلُ الْأَعْدَاءَ عَنِ الْعِبَادَةِ وَالْعِلْمِ. And it also makes one lazy in worship and seeking knowledge. Of course, it's all a result of overeating. And one of the biggest problems is وَيُقَوِّ الشَّهَوَاتِ. It strengthens one's carnal desires. One of the problems, so now all adding up. People don't control their gaze, right? They look at wrong things, lewd things, haram things, right? And then overeat. Overeating also strengthens their carnal desires. And now they're not controlling their gaze, and they're already provoked. And now eating more will also strengthen those. So two things combined together make them shaitan. Literally. It makes them shaitan. They're not able to control it. Now they have to relieve it. They release it somewhere. And they release it in haram ways. That's the problem. So, what's one of the physical ways of handling this issue of over desires is, number one, lower your gaze. Number two, eat less. Once, some Sahabi came to the Prophet ﷺ, asked him, Ya Rasulullah, I'm not able to get married. My financial position is not that strong that I can support a wife. I cannot get married. What should I do? What did he say to him? Fast. Fast. Not fast like us, and you eat 3 parathas at Sahri and have 3 meals during the night. No. Fast to that extent that you are just surviving and you are able to stand up. Of course, we don't have to become lazy in our ibadat and our ilm as well. We need food for that. Our brain needs food. Remember that. So we have to eat healthy food. We have to, if you are a student of ilm, if you are the student of the memorization of Quran, if you're doing any work, right, you need strength and you have to eat. Don't think that, you don't have to go below that line as well. You have to eat good, eat healthy food, but don't overeat. So he said to him, fast, so that your desires become weak. So eating more, it also strengthens the carnal desires. And then what happens? He says, وَيَنْصُرُ جُنُودَ الشَّيْطَانِ. All what it does, it gives assistance to the soldiers of shaitan. The army of shaitan gets over you then. You are lazy, your hafizah is weak, right? Your carnal desires are at its peak. And then shaitan, they come and they just destroy you. So he's saying, when وَالشِّبْعُ مِنَ الْحَلَالِ مَبْدَأُ كُلِّ شَرٍ فَكَيْفَ مِنَ الْحَرَامِ. It's a food for thought. If filling your stomach with halal, with lawful things is the source of every evil, every shar, what about eating haram then? Right? What about eating haram? Eating halal is putting you in so much trouble. What about if you eat haram? That's like darkness upon darkness. And then he says, وَطَلَبُ الْحَلَالِ فَرِيدَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ وَالْعِبَادَةُ مع أكل الحرام كالبناء على السرجين. He's saying that seeking out lawful is obligation on every Muslim. And ibadat, getting engaged in ibadat, and along with eating unlawful is like building on a garbage heap. So he's saying you go and earn halal. No, he's saying that you go out and earn, right? You all go out to earn. Earning is ibadat. Earning for your family is an ibadat. So sometimes people come and say, you know what, I want to just learn ilm and not earn. Of course, there are few people who dedicate themselves. But not everybody can do it, right? Majority of the times, people are lazy enough, and that's why they don't want to do that, right? They're just finding any other way that they just don't earn. Majority of the people, they must earn. It is an ibadat. Only a group of people should dedicate themselves for learning deen. That's what Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran as well. He said not everybody should go. In fact, it's the other thing, that people were going out for a fight. He said, Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, not everybody should go out. Rather, a group of people should stay back and they should learn ilm so that when these people come back, they should teach them, right? So one group has to dedicate 100% in learning and teaching and in da'wat and tabligh. They have to be. But majority of the people should earn. And don't think bad about it, because that's an ibadat. Talabul halali faridatun ala kulli muslimin. Seeking lawful earning is fard upon every single individual. Alright? So this is an ibadat, earning. Earning is an ibadat. Now, you go and earn, but earn haram. You go and earn, but earn haram. He's saying that ibadat with eating of the haram. So you are sort of doing ibadat by earning, but at the very same time earning haram and eating haram. He's saying ibadat along with eating of haram is like you are building a building, but you're building on a garbage heap. Right? You're making a beautiful house, but what's the foundation? It's a garbage place. Right? That's like that. The example of that is like this. Understand? So it's saying that both of them don't go together. It doesn't make any sense. So this is ibadat, but it becomes true ibadat, pure ibadat, khalis ibadat when you also earn halal. فإذا قنعت في السنة بقميص خشن وفي اليوم والليلة برغيفين من الخشكار وتركت التلذذ بأطيب الأدم لم يعبزك من الحلال ما يكفيك فالحلال كثير. He's saying if you are content with only one rough shirt, qamisun khashanun, a rough shirt, for the whole year, and just 2 courses of bread, flat bread, khushkar is like flat bread, and only you're content with 2 loaves of flat bread in a day and a night, yani during a day, and you give up the pleasures of the best of the food, you leave the pleasure of the best food. It says that then you will not be short of halal, of what is enough for you. And he's saying that you will find that, and there are a lot of things that are halal. So what he's saying is that, say, some people, they are only able to fulfill their necessities, and anything on top of that is a luxury. So there are 2 things. One is your necessity, and one is a luxury, right? What is your necessity? Enough clothes that you are able to hide yourself, right? This much food that you are able to stand up and live. So, for example, I mean, as I was in studying last 1 month full time, right? Literally, students were eating dal and roti. That's it. Morning, evening, morning, evening, morning, evening, right? For like 3 days, 4 days, right? Sometimes chawal. But all of these barbecues and, kebabs and, these different types of salads and cakes, these are luxuries. They're not necessities. Problem is that people, they're not content with what they have, and then they want all of these extras, and to earn those extras, they go out and earn haram. That's the problem. Generally, this is the problem, right? You live a house, that's your necessity. Everybody needs a house. But, like for example, you have a family of 4, for example, 2 kids, husband, wife. 2 rooms are enough. Isn't it? 2 rooms are enough, and they don't have to be like huge rooms, right? A small room where you can put a bed, it's a room. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I'm saying that if people don't have enough earnings, and if this is what they have gotten, that's their necessity. They have gotten their necessity. Now, people should work hard. Allah Ta'ala has given them a choice that they can work hard to. In fact, there was subhanAllah, this is another thing that people don't understand. There are many things that are halal. To go over your necessities is absolutely halal. To have ease is absolutely halal. But with the condition that the earnings should be halal as well. What we are saying here is to earn the luxuries with haram money. It's easier, relatively easier to get your necessities with halal money. But it's to go beyond your necessities and to earn luxuries, people earn haram, right? So this is what he's saying, that if you have the necessities, if you have, like, he's giving an example, and times change. Right now the times are different as opposed to the times that Imam Ghazali Rahmatullah Alayhi lived in. He's saying in his time, if you have one shirt, and not even very comfortable, a rough shirt, and he's saying for a whole year, and he's saying you have 2 loaves of bread that you can eat in a day, and you don't have the best food, right? You give up the pleasure of enjoying a better food. He's saying that then you will not be short of what is lawful, in an amount that will suffice you, and there are a lot of halal things, right? You will definitely get halal. Our problem is when we go beyond our limits, yani the limits of our earning, and try to get something outside our source of income. And when we are dreaming about that, and then we earn haram in order to get that, that's where the problem starts. Understand it. Many people, majority of the people, they're going to get haram to get luxuries, not necessities. Many people. There are few, of course, that also earn haram too, because there's a lot of poverty in dunya. Definitely, there's a lot of poverty in dunya. There are many people who have to actually, they're not even able to fulfill their necessities. Yes. Understand that. But talking about majority of the people, they only earn haram to go beyond their necessities. Alright, it says that don't do that. In other words, don't do that. وَلَيْسَ بِعَلَيْكَ أَن تَتَيَقَّنَ بَوَاتِنَ الْأُمُورِ بَلْ عَلَيْكَ أَن تَحْتَرِزَ مِمَّا تَعْلَمُ أَنَّهُ حَرَامٌ أَوْ تَظُنُّ أَنَّهُ حَرَامٌ ظَنًّا. حُصِلَ مِنْ عَلَامَةٍ نَاجِزَةٍ مُقَدَّرَةٍ بِالْمَالِ. So he's saying that it is not your responsibility to attain certainty about the things that are hidden from you, yani in regards to lawfulness. Now he's talking about another thing. But you're obliged to guard against what you know to be unlawful, or what you reasonably suspect based on a clear indication that is associated with the wealth. So he's saying, now we know that we don't have to earn haram, right? He's saying that don't dive into the details of that. For example, a Muslim slaughters a meat, for example. Now you start interviewing him. What's your Aqidah? What's your Aqidah about Allah? What's your Aqidah about the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Right? He's a Muslim. He's Muhammad. You go to him, outwardly a person of Shariat, right? He says, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, sacrifice a chicken in front of you. Come and eat it. Consider it halal. Right? Some people go to the extreme and they'll start, I don't know, what's his Aqidah? Start doubting it. But that's batini amar. That's something that's hidden in the heart. Take the outward of it. You have gone enough to find out that he is a Muslim and he is slaughtering it with his hand, saying the name of Allah. These are the prerequisites for meat to become halal, right? A Muslim slaughtering with his hand, with the name of Allah. These are the prereqs. That's it. And then consider it halal. That's it. Don't go into the batni umur of that. That will be exaggeration also. Then you're putting yourself into trouble. Don't do that. He's saying, alright, you have to get halal, but only go to that level that will feel you satisfied with that, but don't go into the matters that are hidden from you. That's what it is. And if reasonably you can suspect to the reasonable matter, that's fine, based on a clear indication. It should be based on a very clear indication, but not more than that. Okay? So then he says, أَمَّا الْمَعْلُومُ فَظَاهِرٌ. As for what is known, yani to be unlawful, it is very clear. what is known to be unlawful, it is very, very clear. And then he says, وَأَمَّا الْمَزْنُونُ بِعَلَامَةٍ. So, and as for what is suspected to be unlawful, he's saying, for some reason, they are as follows. فَهُوَ مَالُ السُّلْطَانِ وَعُمَّالِهِ. This includes the wealth of a ruler and his government officials. He's saying, alright, some things are very clear. Don't doubt in the unlawfulness of that. But if you want to know about that, what you can suspect, not certainty, still suspect. Right? He's saying only investigate the matters that you get a very clear indication that it is suspected to be unlawful, right? Only try to investigate on those matters, not everything. And what are those matters that you have a suspect of being unlawful? Is number one, Imam Ghazali Rahmatullah Alayhi saying the wealth of a ruler and his government officials. Illa that you have a ruler like Umar bin Abdul Aziz. Illa that you have a ruler like Khulafa Rashidin, right? As of course you cannot suspect them as well. Absolutely not. SubhanAllah, these people were like, even if they had a candle in their house, which is running on the oil of Baitul Mal, like a lamp, right? If they are doing a government, like official work, in the light of that lamp, then they will use that. Once they finish their official work, they will just turn that off and will turn on their personal lamp, because now they're doing their personal stuff. They were so careful about that. So illa that the ruler is somebody like that. We're talking about the corrupt rulers, that you can suspect the wealth of a ruler and his government officials, right? And then he says, وَمَالُ مَنْ لَا كَسْبَ لَهُ إِلَّا بِالنِّيَاحَةِ. And the wealth of the one who has no income except from sources such as niyaha, nauha. Nauha is, people go on the mourn. Go to Pakistan. I've seen that in Pakistan. I don't know about India. There are people who you can get on, and they're professional mourners. Right? If somebody dies in your family, you can actually rent them. You can hire them, You can hire them. And they will come and say, they will also start reading us some poetry and they will make everybody cry. And subhanAllah. It's saying, unless, this is also something that, if somebody is a professional mourner, then, and there's no other wealth of his. That's another thing, right? It's also a possibility of one person has two sources of income. Right? There's a possibility one person has two sources of income. Now, whatever is ghalib, that is supposed to be his income. So if halal income is ghalib, then just, if you go and eat in his house, let's assume that the food that he's feeding you is from that halal income. Understand? So, but this is a person who's a professional mourner, but he has no other income, and that's the only source of his income. Now, of course, you can say that this is haram. Or he's saying, أو بيع الخمر أو الربا أو المزامير. He's saying also the sale of alcohol, or dealing with interest money, or some people playing flutes. That includes what? Professional singers. So the singers who play musical instruments, and that's their source of income, that's also haram. Right? So people, they're professional singers. So Imam Ghazali Rahmatullah Alayhi is saying that's also haram money that they're getting. I heard one of the professional singers in Pakistan, he went to one of the Islamic banks and he wanted to open a bank account in there. And the person at the counter, he actually refused him, because he was a very famous singer. He actually refused to open his bank account. He said, you're a professional singer, your earning is haram, I cannot open your bank account in our Islamic bank. SubhanAllah. Al-Khair, that's a different story, but I'm saying, Imam Ghazali Rahmatullah Alayhi is saying that if he's selling alcohol, you know that he works in a bank, right? He works in a bank, and he not only works in a bank, but also works in a conventional bank, number one. Islamic banking is okay, alright? Our ulama, they absolutely permit Islamic banking. Hazrat Maulana Mufti Taqi Sahab, Damat Barakatuhum, he absolutely allows Islamic banking. So a person working in an Islamic bank is dealing with Islamic transactions. So no issues with that. And also in a conventional bank, you have to ask a mufti as to what is he exactly working in. Because there are a few avenues, although not recommended, but still might be okay. Alright, so if he is dealing with interest-based transactions, then his income is also haram. Or, playing mazamir, musical instruments, any professional singers, that's also haram money. So if you know all of that, if you know about all of that, or you think, وَغَيْرُ ذَلِكَ مِنْ آلَاتِ اللَّهْوِ الْمَحْرَمَةِ, then also if there are other, he is dealing with other the alat, the other instruments, which are haram, then the earning of all of that will become haram as well. Then he says that if you definitely know, فَإِنْ عَلِمْتَ أَنَّ أَكْثَرَ مَالِهِ, if you know that the majority, the aksar of his wealth, haramun qat'an, that's definitely haram. So he has mentioned that all of these things are haram, that source of income is haram, and you know that the majority of his wealth is definitely haram, certainly haram, فَمَا تَأْخُذُهُ مِنْ يَدِهِ, then don't take anything from him. Then don't take anything. And in other words, if he feeds you food, don't eat that food. And if he gives you anything, you know it's haram, certainly haram. Majority of his income is haram. These are a few examples that is of haram wealth. Then don't take anything from it. But then he says, وَإِنْ أَمْكَنَ أَنْ يَكُونَ حَلَالًا نَادِرًا, but if there is a possibility that it might be from a lawful portion, right? He might have two sources of income, and even the slightest a possibility, it might be halal. Don't be too strict as well. We are people of the middle way. We are the people of the middle way. He's saying that if you have a slightest a possibility that he has two sources of income and one of them is halal, and maybe this is halal, right? Even it's nadir. If it is a very slightest possibility, then, he's saying فَهُوَ حَرَامٌ. Acha, this is what he's going back to. Alright, so, he's talking about that if aksar mal is haram. Aksar of his mal is haram. So for example, he works in a interest-based transaction in a conventional bank, and his salary is that. But at the very same time, he teaches kids, right, and he gets tuition from them. And for example, he gets like 1,000 dirham from tutoring kids, and he gets 50,000 dirhams from a conventional bank, right? Aksar of his mal is haram. In that case, then even if you think that what he's giving is halal, then that is considered as haram. It is that scenario. But what I was saying is that it's like a 50-50 thing, right? Then just assume that it is halal, right? So give him a benefit of a doubt. It's a very common question. It's a very common question. That what if somebody is working in a conventional bank and he's working in the interest-based transaction, that's where his salary is coming from, and he invites you for over the meal. What to do? Kya kare? Khane pe bulata hu aapko. And he's your very close friend. He's very close relative. It's very difficult to deny invitations from close people, right? What to do? The way that our ulama have said to deal with such a condition is that rather than just denying it, sorry, you earned haram, I can't come, right? It'll push him away. Maybe the opportunity that there could have been to invite him towards deen, you're shutting that door off, right? What to do? Ulama have said, you go, but you buy him a gift. And make a niyat that this food that I'm going to eat I'm buying that food from him. And the summon, the price of that is this gift. Right? And he accepts that, you eat food, you come, and as if you bought food from him and you have eaten that. Understand? So now it's not his feeding, but rather you have bought. For example, you go to a restaurant. You don't know how restaurants might be running on loan. The whole restaurant might be running on loan, right? They are paying interest to the bank and all of that. But you're not bothered by that. You don't care about that. Why? It's none of your business. It's his issue. What do? He cooks food for you. You pay the price for that. You buy food and you eat. Perfectly fine transaction. Just like that, in this scenario as well, you go to that person and you buy him a gift and make a niyat that this is the price for what you are going to eat at his place, and then you eat the food and as if you're buying it from him, like that restaurant. That will keep the ties, and also at the very same time, you will not be indulged into haram. Right? And inshallah it'll bring you closer. And also, don't just ignore him. Tell him, isharatan, kinayatan, indirectly, that, this is not right, you should rather leave it, interest is haram. And inshallah, once you put it in his head, at least he will start thinking. He will start thinking. So, he's saying that if the majority of his income is haram, then and if some of it is halal, then if he gives, then assume that it might be haram because لأنه الغالب على الظن, because that is ghalib. That's the dominant opinion. Most likely it is haram, because 50,000 versus 1,000, why? It's more likely that what he's giving you is from that 50,000, right? That's haram. ठीक है? And then he says, وَمِنَ الْحَرَامِ الْمَحْدِي, another thing which is definitely, purely, certainly, absolutely haram, is مَا يُؤْكَلُ مِنَ الْأَوْقَافِ مِنْ غَيْرِ شَرْطِ الْوَاقِفِ, that is taken from religious endowments. Somebody, for example, makes a factory and does waqf to a madrasa. Right? There are some people, Allah Ta'ala has given them, they want to support a madrasa. What they do is that say, alright, this, for example, the shop, and any earning that comes out of that shop, that is endowed, that's waqf for this madrasa. Yani all of the earnings should go for the expenses of the madrasa. Madaris have expenses, alright? People don't know that. So one day, some of our friends were talking together. And honestly, people think that everything is presented on a plate with nothing at the back. This graduation ceremony that happened last week, 3-4 days ago. Just to give you a rough estimate, do you know how much were the expenses behind that? There are more than 50,000 dirhams. Just to give you an idea. People don't understand that. Somebody was mentioned that, oh, is it really? And I mean, as if teachers, they get stipends, right? Where do they get from? Where do they get it from? There is no tree outside. There are people, Allah give them jazaa khair, they come and they contribute. But what I'm saying is, many people, they are so blindfolded of this fact that, there are expenses in the madaris. But anyway, what he's saying is something is waqf for a madrasa, right? Or anything, any religious endowment, right? Can be for a masjid, running the expense. Masajid also have expenses. Masajid, alhamdulillah, here, majority of the masajid are funded by the government. But you go to other countries, right? The people run it. They're expenses. There's electricity bill. Right? SubhanAllah, right now, for example, how many ACs working? Yesterday it was not working for some time before, and everybody was sweating. And what, we had to get an extra AC. But do people think that, mashallah, we're all sitting comfortably now, but putting an extra AC will increase the cost of the electric bill, isn't it? People don't think about these things. You go and you pray in the masjid, right? In a masjid that's a publicly funded masjid, right? SubhanAllah, if there's no AC, people complain. It's so hot. They should put an AC on. They should have an air conditioner on. They should have an air cooler, right? Everybody complains. But there is nobody from the Musallin is willing to come up and say, you know what, I donate an AC for the masjid, please buy an AC. Nobody will do that. Everybody will complain. And then once the AC is put, nobody will come up and will say, you know what, I know that by now that we have 3 ACs running in the masjid, everybody is so comfortable, I know that your electricity bill must have multiplied 10 times, here is my monthly contribution for the electricity bill. I know that. Nobody thinks about that. It's unfortunate. Bad. And people should think. So much so, alhamdulillah, none of us do that. Our madaris, we have been taught by our teachers, and this is how it is. In our madaris, we don't ask for fees, right? Monthly fees. But subhanallah, people, they take it for granted then after that. So much for granted. That if there's no fees, that means, our obligation is lifted. It's wrong. I'm trying to make you all think about that. Right? You go elsewhere, inshallah. You should understand, if you have a masjid, that it's not like a government-funded masjid. If it's a public, please think about that. Please think about that. We go and sit in Etiquettes, for example, for 10 days. All the people go to Etiquettes. We use their facilities. We use their electricity. We use their resources, their water. Right? It's not free. None of that is free. We have used that for 10 days, and we come back without even thinking about it. We should put something in the masjid fund at the end of the 10 days, so that all what I have used, I should contribute towards that. Right? I've stayed in the masjid for 10 days in Etiquette, used their electricity, used their water, used all of the other resources. People are vacuuming. There are people working for them who are cleaning the masjid, all of that. We should think about it and should contribute towards the masjid at the end of Etiquette. Please think, my friends. Think. So anyway, if there's an endowment for the masjid, or any religious endowment, he's saying that it is unlawful that you take out of that. This is purely waqf for that religious endowment. Without being without so it's haram to take from what is taken from a religious endowment. Of course, min ghayri shart al-waqfi, if you do not fulfill the conditions of the waqf. Alright? Without being in accordance with its sharaid, with its conditions. So please understand that. And then he says, فَمَنْ لَمْ يَشْتَغِلْ بِالتَّفَقُّهِ فَمَا يَأْخُذُهُ مِنَ الْمَدَارِسِ حَرَامٌ. So any wealth taken from a madrasa. So basically he's saying that, just again to restart, that anything taken from a religious endowment without fulfilling the conditions of the waqf, that's haram. And if you do not get, if you're not becoming a faqih, if he is not becoming a faqih, if he's not becoming a jurist, then you take any wealth out of a madrasa and that is used somewhere else, but rather than spending on somebody becoming a jurist, that is unlawful. That's what he is saying. So whatever is taken out of that waqf should be absolutely spent in the acts of that religious institution. And then he says, فَمَا يَأْخُذُهُ بِاسْمِ الصُّوفِيَّةِ مِنْ وَقْفٍ أَوْ غَيْرِهِ فَهُوَ حَرَامٌ. Then likewise, any wealth that is taken out of an endowment in the name of Sufism, or any other thing, is also haram. Same thing. It says, be it madaris, be it any other religious name, but it is taken out of that endowment for any other reason but to be used in a religious thing, or in the thing that is related to that institution for which this is endowed for, then it is not right. It is haram wealth. It's unlawful. That's what he's saying in short. And then he says, وَقَدْ ذَكَرَنَا مَدَاخِلَ الشُّبُهَاتِ وَالْحَلَالِ وَالْحَرَامِ فِي كِتَابٍ مُفْرَدٍ مِنْ كُتُبِ إِحْيَاءِ عُلُومِ الدِّينِ. He's saying that I have mentioned, Imam Ghazali says, I mentioned the sources of doubtful, lawful, unlawful incomes in one of the chapters of Ihya Ulumuddin. Remember I told you that this is the book that Imam Ghazali wrote, Ihya Ulumuddin, the revival of the sciences of deen. He's saying that all of that, the detail of that, and what is doubtful, what is halal, what is haram, their sources, I mentioned all of that in one of the chapters of my book, Ihya Ulumuddin. He's saying, فَعَلَيْكَ بِطَلَبِهِ, then you should consult that. You should learn that from there. He's saying, فَإِنَّ مَعْرِفَةَ الْحَلَالِ وَطَلَبَهُ فَرِيدَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ كَالصَّلَوَاتِ الْخَمْسِ. And he's saying, you must get to know about that. You must learn that. Why? Because you need to know what's halal, what's haram, what's a halal source, what's haram source, what is the right transaction, what's the wrong transaction. You must know that. Why? Because وَطَلَبُهُ فَرِيدَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. To know all of that is mandatory upon every Muslim, just like 5 daily prayers. Because to get halal, to know about the halal and to get it, it is mandatory for every Muslim. So when it's mandatory for every Muslim that you all must earn halal, so you should also know the rulings of what is the halal source of income, what's haram source of income. So it's as necessary as 5 daily prayers. Alright? Next, Adabul Farj, private parts. He's saying, وَأَمَّا الْفَرْجُ, as for the private parts are concerned, فَاحْفَظْهُ عَنْ كُلِّ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى, then guard it from everything that Allah Ta'ala has forbidden. From everything. وَكُنْ كَمَا قَالَ اللَّهُ, and be like what Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has said, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ. That Allah Ta'ala says that, what is that? وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. The people of Allah are those, the true believers. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. The mu'minun has become successful. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about who are those successful believers. One of their qualities is that who guard their private parts. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. Who guard, take care of their private parts. إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ. Yani that the only exception that there are, is that إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ, except from their spouses, أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ, or what their right hands possess, yani their slaves, which is not a concept anymore. Slavery is, in our day and age, slavery is absolutely gone. Nobody can actually in this day and age claim that, he has a rightful slave shar'an. No. It may come back, right? It may come back. That's why we still study that in our books of fiqh. That the reason we still study that in our books of fiqh is that what if the scenario is, the history repeats itself and there is an environment where the slavery does come back. So in order to keep it alive, we keep in some of the madaris they actually skip that. We highlight it in ours, but we also, and we don't go into the details of that as well, but do tell people the basics of that, so that the knowledge remains alive of the slavery. So that if it comes back ever in the future, our generations do know about the ahkam, the rulings of that. That's why it's still in the books of fiqh. But in this day and age, there is no slavery. Okay, so this أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ part is not applicable for us. So for us, the only place where there is an exception is إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ. That's it. Spouses. Allah Ta'ala is saying there is no second place, no second avenue other than your spouses that you can don't guard your private parts. that you can use it at any second place. Be it playing with yourself as well. Haram. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ إِلَّا عَلَىٰ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ. For in the case of the spouses, and when there was slavery, it said they are not blameworthy of that. But, in other words, any other place other than spouses is blameworthy. It's blameworthy. You are to be blamed for that. In other words, that's a sin. And unfortunately, people don't consider that. And people are sinning. So he says, وَلَا تَصِلُوا إِلَى حِفْظِ الْفَرْجِ إِلَّا بِحِفْظِ الْعَيْنِ عَنِ النَّظْرِ. He said, you will not be successful in guarding the private parts except by guarding the eye from looking. It all starts with the eye. Anybody who tries to fix himself or herself and say that they have the addiction of playing with themselves and fulfilling their desires by themselves, first thing, they don't say that. First response is, why don't you control your eyes? Because when people don't control their eyes, then of course their desires are provoked. That's the problem. That's the starting point. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. Just finish the foundation of that, of unlawful desires, of getting your desires provoked. He said, that's what he says. You will not be able to successful in fulfilling your desires in unlawful ways until and unless you start controlling your eyes from looking around. And also, the second thing, you will not be able to control your private parts إِلَّا وَحِفْظِ الْقَلْبِ عَنِ الْفِكْرِ. Some people, until you guard your heart from this contemplation. Some people, they fantasize. Haram. Fantasizing about wrong things. Some boys fantasize about girls and girls fantasize about boys. People fantasize about their marriage to be. Right? So that, until and unless you stop your brain from thinking about all of these wrong things, you will not be able to guard your private parts. And then وَحِفْظِ الْبَطْنِ عَنِ الشُّبْهَةِ وَعَنِ الشِّبْعِ. And as we have said, another thing that you must do in order to guard your private parts, you have to protect your stomach from eating doubtful food and from filling it up. Both, even if it's halal. If you're overeating, you have the habit of eating all the time, then of course, your carnal desires will get strong, as we have mentioned before. And then, of course, when it becomes strong and you're not married, right? Then you'll not be able to control it. فَإِنَّ هَذِهِ مُحَرِّكَاتٌ لِلشَّهْوَةِ وَمَغَارِسُهَا. He's saying, Imam Ghazali rahmatullah alayhi, because indeed, all of these things, they provoke one's desires and are the places where their seeds are sown. So these are the places where the seeds of fulfilling the desires of the private part are sown. These things. What are these things? Eyes. When you look at haram things, that is where it starts from. Or you start thinking, fantasizing about wrong things. That's where the seeds of using your private parts unlawfully are sown. Or you eat doubtful haram food, or you fill your stomach even if it's with halal food. They are the muharrikat. They are those things that actually becomes the cause of using your private parts unlawfully. So please, remember, I go back. What did Imam Ghazali rahimahullah said? That there are 7 doors of hellfire, and every door of hellfire is destined for people sinning with one of these limbs. So, in other words, there is a door of hellfire. Only those people will enter from it who use their private parts unlawfully. There is no second way of fulfilling your desires illa ala azwajihim. That's it. And there are etiquettes of that as well. You need to learn that. People who are married. Alright, let's stop here inshaAllah. آخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.